And boom, according to that, I'm live. Welcome. This is Tokyo Tonight. My name is Hiko Simon. I can see the levels say that sound is going through, and I appear to be live. It's good to see you all. Good to see already straight away. We've got Mr. Cordy Chep indeed in here first, and Quint Rankett. According to the stats, we've got 6 people viewing. I don't know if that actually includes myself. 2 likes. Thank you for the likes. Do say hello if you're here. Nope, a boot. I wonder if that's the battery on my keyboard. By the way, I still love this keyboard. It's the old Microsoft Arc keyboard. They made these really well. It's just a nice thing to have on the desktop. I've got the fancy keyboard hooked up to my work computer, which is also on here. But when the battery is low, lately I've noticed it start to miss keys more often. So yeah, that's a thing, I guess. Let me put a little bit more light on there. Good to see you all. Hope that you're all well. Again, thank you for joining on short notice. I do appreciate all of that. Let me just get comfortable. I've got a slightly different tilt on the camera than usual, but this actually makes it sort of easier for me to, talk and look in the direction of the camera at the same time. I guess comments are still over here, but that's okay because it looks like I'm going across. I see, boom, we have Shubas. Never fear, Shubas is here, the man from Panama. Good to see you. Sunny day in Panama, sunny day here in Tokyo, but I imagine it's a bit warmer in Panama. I wish I was there. I wish I was having a morning cup of coffee in Panama. Good to have you with us. It's been an interesting week. I should begin by shouting out Ada Void. Good to see you, Ada Void. Good morning to you. Hello again, says Kustos. Good to have you in here, Kustos. I definitely feel like I should shout out to Quinn Rankett. I think it was you that called out, go watch 2-minute papers. I watched nearly, well, not all of them. There are too many 2-minute papers. But I watched about 30 2-minute papers. I went back 7 years and I picked out all of the papers. I figured I should watch it in progression up to the most recent ones just to sort of appreciate. Because I do play around with AI at work, more with models that are already done, not with the actual creation of the models, although that is an aspect of something I can do at work. But yeah, going from things I'm generally familiar with to the crazy stuff that's happening now in order to contextualize the growth. Yeah, thank you for that recommendation. That was awesome. I love that. In fact, actually, as well, apart from the guy, the guy's name that I've heard it now like 40 or 50 times, and I still could not pronounce it back to you once. He studies, he like teaches and studies or researches at the University of Vienna, but he's got a name that sounds really like Hungarian. Yeah, the producer. The narrator is just very infectious. Hold on to your papers, everyone. Tighter. What a time to be alive. I must admit, because I really did start on the recent AI informational binge that I've been doing. Mainly being shared links and asked for views privately from people who are involved from the art side and who are very alarmed. And as a result, I've seen and digested a lot of really great information lately, including technical and the stuff about the ethics and so on. But it's really nice to go into something that's very digestible, very technology focused, and just optimistic, because honestly, everybody is freaking out so much. And that's a perfectly legitimate direction to go looking at the technology. But, I think it's also important to appreciate when you're looking at this as something that's coming to eat your children, which some artists are. It's like studying mountain lions. Yes, they are coming to eat your children, but it doesn't mean that they're not perfectly interesting to study and cute and lovable in their own right. And, AI scientists are like that. And it's not that they're deliberately trying to eat your children. It's just it's just what the technology will do, along with everybody else. But, it's good to at least be optimistic and excited about what it's doing. There we go. There's the first random thought for the show, that AI is like mountain lions, but even mountain lions can be cute and exciting if you're into studying them. And I'm with the people who study them. It's not like mountain lions are bad, right? And the technology itself is kind of neutral, but there is this kind of a lot of people focusing on it with fear, justified fear. But I think you have to look at it. You have to not anthropomorphize it. And frankly, it is amazing what's happening with the technology. It is what a time to be alive kind of a thing. So big thanks to Quint Rankett for shouting that out. I highly recommend. I did share it on Twitter, 2-minute papers. And I do recommend going back through the videos and picking out some of the older ones that look interesting and building up. It's fun, it's very digestible, and it is genuinely amazing to understand. And again, he's got all these sort of catchphrases that he uses. For a guy who speaks English as a second language, it's amazingly infectious and fun and entertaining to listen to. He is very, very charming. He talks about how, this paper that we've just made a breakthrough on figuring out how to recognize this kind of style in art or whatever, but just imagine what it will be 2 papers from now. He always talks about it in terms of, because there are these exponential leaps happening paper by paper at the moment, and that's the perspective. What I really appreciated about that series that got me very, very excited was just the way it gave me another appreciation for the fact that behind all of this, I mean, everyone knows that this is all math. Computing is all about breaking things down into math and doing things with maths. But the way that he broke down, and actually, again, not to an extent that I would ever be capable of doing myself mathematically, but sharing enough light to sort of normalize the explanation that, yeah, we're actually using math to figure out mathematically what's happening in voices, what's happening in games, what's happening in, and not just like recognizing, okay, what's the number of pixels, that are doing this, and if I change these parameters, what's the output pixels? It starts explaining that, but then it goes into actually figuring out how to create mathematical equations for determining, things that you would think like, like musical taste. Things like, for example, in games that are so complex that you can't compute all of the moves, instead figuring out ways to abstract good strategies in games like that, and mathematically generate, basically boil it down to formulas that can handle certain, strategies, things that are very abstract, but now can go into things like what I do, like drafting and analyzing contracts or regulations. Is this a good law or a bad law? It's amazing. 2-minute papers is forced to be optimistic by his robot overlords. Yeah, it would be hilarious if it turned out his papers were being written for him by Chat GPT. But anyway, it's very, very impressive and fun. Crypto area, I never know which day of the week it is until I see your stream. Oh, it's Sunday. Crypto area, glad to let you know it is Sunday. Welcome back to Sunday. And yeah, I guess by the time I do the show here, the only place in the world that's not Sunday is New Zealand, because that's 4 hours ahead. So it's already Sunday morning when I start this stream there, but pretty much everywhere else in the world, you're right. It is even Hawaii by now, it'd be Sunday, I guess. So yeah, that is a thing. 2 papers from now will be replaced. Well, I'm sure his replacement will be even more charming, and will be able to. He'll be sipping pina coladas, making money off the AdSense, I hope, while the AI makes even better versions. I mean, who knows? I mean, Tokyo Tonight could very well be. This could all be an AI. You won't even know that it's not me. Geez, 2 more papers from now. Who knows? Eater. I don't know if I should say Eater or EEDIR or whatever, but however I pronounce your name, I still don't know after all these years. It's excellent to see you. And Jeff, happy Sunday. Happy Sunday right back at you. Odie Jr., boom, good morning. Hiko Simon, great to see you. Kerberos Tenchi, well, as Austria and Hungary were once one country, an Austrian guy with a Hungarian name is perfectly fine. Oh, indeed, of course. I love all that history stuff, and that is an excellent point there, of course, Kerberos Tenchi. Atomic Tom, by the way, I'm reading the names in reverse at the moment, but hello indeed, right back at you, Atomic Tom, good to see you. I guess catching up on the week, it's been a really, really interesting week, and I really don't care for the fact that Twitter puts the views on, the number of views of tweets on. I never really saw the point of that, because I don't think of tweets as something that you do for the views. I do care about it with YouTube a little bit, just as a metric of, how much it's being accessed by. I've never cared about that for Twitter. I have done, I mean, by my standards of a viral tweet, a tweet that kind of takes off, more or less the informal measure, and it still is happening now, is whenever I just go back and look at Twitter and I see that I have more than 20 notifications, and it's kind of annoying and I can't clear them all out. That's kind of when something's gone viral for my purposes. I've never done, I think, a 1 million person, tweet or anything like that. But if I get something like 100 likes on a tweet, to me, that's viral. I've had 2 tweets this week, which have just gone kind of crazy. One, and both of them have gotten like, 20, 30, 40,000 tweets. One of them, I think I've gotten the topics here, although as usual, one of the things I hate about Flipboard is often, like, for example, I'll post a picture with a link to how I generated the picture, a map of Japan thing, which I'll dive into more later on. Flipboard, when I try to share that story and I want to show the picture that I created, it forces you to go to the link that you added to it. So quite often I find it hard to actually link to things that I want to point to from Flipboard. It's just an annoying thing about Flipboard. I should really talk to them, or maybe they should get some new papers done on how they get their site to work. I mean, I love the fact it still works, and I've been using it for years, but yeah. Anyway, one was about the sort of Japan score for maps, which I'll get into later on in the show. The other one was just casual. I was sitting at work, I think it was on Thursday morning, and this Japanese lawyer came up to me, and he's like, Hiko, you're from New Zealand, right? Do you know Gavin? And I kind of looked at him. I gave him a blank look. I'm like, dude, there are 5 million of us. You can't, like, it's a small country, but you can't just ask me who's Gavin. What do you mean who's Gavin? What Gavin are you talking about? He says, Gavin, yeah, he's a head partner at Baker McKenzie law firm. And I was like, oh, yeah, I know him. And I just sat back there. I went back to my desk, and I just thought, oh, this is just one of those moments that I hate being a New Zealander. That apparently happens to Irish people as well. One, I hate the question, is it assumes that they can. People just ask this all the time. Hey, do you know John? And I'll have 2 immediate moments of dread. One, oh my God, like, why are you even asking me? They're like, you can't just ask someone from New Zealand, do you know Tony? But, or in this case, do you know Gavin? But then you also realize immediately after that, oh God, it's going to take like one clarifying question, and I probably do. And that was exactly the case in this case. I did know the guy. And that is the pleasure and curse of being a New Zealander. That one, for some reason, got like crazy retweeted and viral. And it's true, and it's happened many, many times before. The funniest one actually was when, I think I've told the story before, but when I was backpacking, when I was doing Spanish, I was with a New Zealand and Australian university group of 50 students, and we were all staying in a hotel in Madrid for 3 months when I was at university, and doing like an intensive Spanish course. I actually majored in Spanish, not in Japanese. I've forgotten it now, but this is why I'd love to go to Panama. I should brush up. But there were these American backpackers on their first ever outside of America experience, and they were all from like Chicago or that area, Minnesota sort of area, Minnesota, Michigan. They were from that area anyway, and they were on their first ever trip outside of America, and they were kind of shockingly unworldly. Like for many of us New Zealanders, we hadn't traveled a lot either, but we're from a small country and an island. We study the rest of the world. There's not a lot to study in New Zealand. So when we had these American people meet us and say, wow, you're all from New Zealand, what language do you speak there? And how long does it take me to drive there from America? Were serious questions that we got from these people who themselves, we were all like 19 years old, and they were all 19 years old. And it was like meeting, some of them came up to me on the end, they had to stay in Spain for like 2 weeks and then write an essay at the end about their impressions from being overseas for the first time. And they told me, yeah, everything I wrote was about my conversation with you about New Zealand. I'm like, dude, you've been in Spain for 2 weeks and your whole takeaway is finding out that New Zealanders speak English. But I kind of, I wanted to be polite. So I even when they're asking me, what language do you speak there? And I'm like, dude, what language are you speaking to me now? I held all of that back, and I was being good, but I cracked. I fell apart when they asked someone, when another member of that group was talking to a female friend of mine, where he literally said, oh, you're from New Zealand. Do you know John? And at that moment, I snapped. I couldn't be polite anymore. I said, dude, you realize there are at the time like 4 million of us. We're from a city of more than 1 million people. You say John, there are like hundreds of thousands of Johns. You can't just. And then my friend interrupted me and said, John from Chicago. Yeah, he went to my high school. And I gave up disgusted, and it's pretty much something like that's happened every time this has ever come up since. So it was funny. I shared it in the moment on Twitter. It was just a throwaway comment for all the intelligent things I try to say. So yeah, she knew John. I didn't know John. I was like, don't ask her who John is. She doesn't know. We're a bigger country than that. And then she totally knew. So yeah, that's the world is a village. It is funny how small the separations are, especially in a thing like Tokyo. The international community here is so small. We are like a small town inside a big city in a way. The connections, we're more interconnected than we always realize. Shubis, I heard some people still speak English in the US, but rapidly changing to Spanish. I've heard the same thing. I must admit. So, fingers crossed. Still going through all the paperwork and so on. Hoping. I guess I won't know until like early February if I'm okay for the visa to go and work in America for a few months. I'm looking forward to that. Though I'm looking forward to working in Seattle. I've been there a few times. I like the place. I mean, it's where I've got to go. But I must admit, I understand there isn't a lot of Spanish speaking in Seattle. Of course, it's right on the border of Canada. It's one of the many reasons I guess I'd rather be in Southern California, even Texas or Florida. I must admit I could speak Spanish there. The weather would be better. The food would probably be better. But yeah, I'm just happy to be able to go in anywhere anyway. So yeah, Kerber's Tenshi, that's like the story of jack shit when somebody says you don't know. That could very well be it. Shubis was gonna try ChatGPT, but it wants my phone number, which I'm not about to give up to AI, so no go. It wanted your phone number. I'm just thinking about that. I think I gave it my email. I signed up with email. Maybe I did give it my phone number. I think they do it to validate that. Well, yeah, and you don't have to use it. It is fun. It is freaky, but yeah, don't do anything you're not comfortable with. I did, and it was fun. But yeah. Yeah, Jeff, Seattle is a great time. I think it is too. I must admit, if I go there in February, it'll still be cold, but it'll be getting warmer. Spring should be pretty good, so I'll be looking forward to that. I do want to go to the beach. I'm really hoping I can get down and see Kurt Bell and Kat McDowell down in Los Angeles. I'll try to figure out some way I can do that, but what can we do? Thank you for the quick Wikipedia. Couldn't rank it. 9% Hispanic. Oh, that's not bad. I don't know. Maybe I can find something. It's one of those things where I feel like when I was backpacking first to Japan, like it's kind of going to a new place all over again. Kind of exciting. Anyway, we should jump into the topics. Again, just a quick reminder to people, if you haven't said hello yet, please do say hello. If you want to say a comment to me, get my attention, get a response, or just whatever, just say my name. You'll see it'll flash there in orange. You don't even need the @ mark. When I scan back through the comments, I'll pay special attention to those. Yeah, do remember to like. I do appreciate that. It does help with the algorithm and everything else. I mean, honestly, everything's been kind of stagnant, I suppose, with the channel. I'm perfectly comfortable with it this way. Oh, final thing I should mention, if you are in Tokyo or around Tokyo, plan is still Saturday, January 21. I will go to the Hobgoblin restaurant in Roppongi. It is... sorry, the camera's jittering around a bit there. I don't know what's going on there. Yeah, I did a quick poll on Mastodon and on Twitter just to get an idea if there would be an unmanageable number of people. A lot of people say that they're not sure, which I guess is natural, like 20 or 30. But people are saying, oh yeah, I will definitely go to that. There's like 5, which honestly, I'm cool. That means I don't really have to call the bar in advance. And that's assuming that if 5 say that they'll definitely go, and maybe of the maybes, like maybe it'll be maximum of like 10 or 15. That's a comfortable number for me, so I'm good with that. That means I'll actually get to have proper conversations with people. So, yeah, if you're around in Tokyo and able to come, I'll be happily doing a meetup in Seattle. In Roppongi in Tokyo on January 21st. And when I'm in America, I'll definitely do something when I'm over there as well. Yeah, anyway, just a quick reminder to everybody before we kick off. Let's get into the topics. Jeff, looking forward to the meetup. I'll do my best to get there. Hope you do. It'd be good to see you, Jeff. So, yeah, 20 to 30. Here goes popular. I don't want 1 million followers, honestly. I'm good with the I'm good with the little community that we have. I don't have to deal with a lot of BS that a lot of other if I was like good looking or charismatic or popular, I would just have so much like crap to deal with. So no, I appreciate all of you for just accepting me as I am. Yeah, but too polite to say no. That's idiot. That's how I'm interpreting most of the not sures. So yeah. Anyway, so first story that we've got, for people who are following, I must admit this is kind of good news and bad news, but I'm thinking that I'm going to be earning US dollars in a couple of months, and I'm going to be in America. On the one hand, the yen being super cheap means that it's not going to be good for US dollars because my compensation when I'm being paid in America is going to be based on what I'm earning in Japan, which means actually, and it's what the yen was valued like a month ago when it was like 140. So actually, now that the yen's getting to be more expensive, I'm losing out. I'm actually getting paid less in America than I'd be getting paid if I stayed in Japan now that the yen's increasing in value. The good news is that it means that my savings, if I want to buy anything in America, things in America are getting cheaper, and my savings will go further when I'm in America. So that's a good thing. It looks like that tweak, that little adjustment to the interest rates that the Bank of Japan did, has helped that the yen has gone from like nearly 150 like a month ago to 129. I'll remind that the normal range of the yen, in my experience, has like been between like 90 and 125. It's very unusual. The whole nearly 24 years I've been here, it's only been above 125 like once, and that's this time. Above meaning cheaper, that the dollar buys more yen. So the good news is that while it's been around 130 this week, it does seem to be coming back into the realm of normalcy, at least by the Big Mac index and by other things. The bad news, I guess, is that if you're outside of Japan and planning to come to Japan, things in Japan are still on sale. 110 is still really the normal living index adjusted kind of norm. So everything in Japan is still on a 20% sale, but we're not quite having the 40% sale that we were having a short time ago. In terms of what's going to happen, people sometimes ask me here in the comments, what do I predict is going to happen with the yen? To which I have no idea. I mean, nobody knows. But I don't see the fundamentals changing. I mean, assuming that it's continuing now to increase in value based on the change in the central bank interest rates, at least until the next, Fed updates and the next Bank of Japan updates, it looks like, the yen's probably going to continue to either get stronger or stay the same. So interesting times. It has jumped a significant amount anyway. So if you're planning trips to Japan, that is a thing. Another thing, yesterday I got another shot. I got my influenza shot. Compared to getting the coronavirus shot, which I had to arrange outside of work for the first time. Actually, my flu shot as well, I always got at work, but since most people are not working in the office, still, at least where I am, this is the first time I had to arrange both shots remotely. The coronavirus shot, I actually had to book, like weeks in advance, and it was quite a lot of documentation and hassle to be able to do. The flu shot, I called up. I found a place that was giving them, and I called up. I said, "Do I have to make a reservation?" They said, "No, just come over." And I went in, and I was in and out 5 minutes. It was done, and almost no side effects or anything like that either. So I didn't run on the weekend. I just took it easy. But the flu shot was easy. The reason that is a good idea, however, is that there is now officially a flu pandemic on top of on top of coronavirus happening right now. A lot of people's immune systems, people just haven't had it for a couple of years. So RS virus and flu and everything is going around at the moment. It's just the time of year as well. So plus, again, I figured it's smart not just for being around. Now I am going into the office more often. But also, if I'm going to be traveling, I want to get all of that stuff sorted out. So, definitely, if you are in Japan, or frankly, if you're anywhere, particularly in the northern hemisphere, you're having winter right now, it's a good idea to get the flu shot. Everybody's immune systems are weaker, and flu is pretty bad. So, go get that done. And it was fine for me. Razel Gul, long time no see. Good to see you there in the chat. Nice to see you watching. Thanks for dropping in the comment. Kerberos Tenshi, when you did your working holiday in Japan, in the beginning it was 88 yen to the euro. When you finished, it was 133 yen to the euro. You lost twice in 11 months. I actually, when I got to Japan in 1998, or 1999, well, I was working holiday in 1998, and then I came back to live in 1999 with my student loan. I had it was 76 yen to the dollar, and I paid off my student loan to the New Zealand dollar. And then it was like 110 when I paid off my student loan. So I must admit, I sent every yen that I could back to New Zealand. And the exchange rate really helped me pay off my loan, like halved my student loan. And New Zealand student loans are like, compared to American, it was like $20,000. But, coming out with a law degree in America, you'd have hundreds of thousands of dollars in loans. I was able to clear my loan debt. Even though I wasn't earning that much, honestly, I was only earning like 5.5 million yen for my first couple of years. But I paid it off. I paid off my whole student debt like in less than 3 years. So I paid off 20,000, earning 50,000, 55,000 US a year. I paid back $20,000 of debt, interest earning debt, 8% interest accumulating debt. I paid it all off within 3 years, which shows you the kind of, I was living pretty lean. I was not, I was not spending a lot of money during that time, but I was very glad to get it all paid off. Anyway, what do we got? Next story. So I went for, in terms of the Apple Watch saga, I do love the Apple Watch Ultra. It is awesome. But the one thing that is killing me about this watch, Apple, if you're watching, is one of the stats I like looking at my old Withings watch, which I did love, was that it told me how fit I was. And it was good. It would tell me if I was going out for a run. It would tell me, just give me a metric for my ability to, my blood oxygen, max level. And I could see how well my body was handling each run. And that would inform to me how hard I should go, how fast I think I can go. And I like checking that score every day. And that score exists on my Apple Watch, but it needs like 3 runs, where apparently what they say is you need to do 3 runs of more than 20 minutes on a less than 5% gradient, and it'll just automatically calibrate, and then you'll get your fitness score every day. And I've been trying to do that now since like last September. And I've been having an open Apple support case, including with the actual fitness metric engineering team actually putting spyware on my watch and monitoring runs and doing everything since November. And they still can't get it to work. It still hasn't kicked in, and it's driving me crazy. So one of the challenges is that in actual fact, 5% gradient is like even a slight slope anywhere. Will beat 5%. It's very hard to find anywhere you can run that's not a 5% gradient, arguably, other than a running track. And even running tracks, in terms of like publicly accessible running tracks in Tokyo, there's only like 1 or 2 that are in central Tokyo, close to my house, like in Yoyogi Park and so on, which are super crowded. So I actually did a topographical map search of Tokyo for the closest place I could find that is a decent distance, like 1 or 2 kilometers that I can run laps on. That is less than 5% gradient. The only place I could find is by a Asakusa station by the Sumida River there. So I actually went there the other day, and I did like 3 interval runs. I did 3 runs, between 20-25 minutes each one, taking a break in between to reset, just to see if that would do it. It didn't work, but it was a lovely day. It was a perfectly flat course. So it was very, very easy, and yeah, got a nice view. So I got some nice Instagrams out of it, but still didn't work. So Apple, give me my fitness score. What are you doing? A lot of people saw the photo and they commented on what is that large poo on top of that building. Most people watching this show probably are familiar with the poo. The poo is that is the large building beside the poo, the big gold one, and the poo itself. That is the Asahi Beer Global headquarters. The sculpture is supposed to represent a beer foam blowing on top of a cup of beer, a glass of beer, I suppose. And almost nailed it. They almost got the image of beer foam perfectly correct, but unfortunately, just slightly missed the beer foam and came out looking like a huge poo. It is a famous sight. If you go to Asakusa, to the Sensoji Temple, one of the top tour sites in Tokyo, you'll prominently be able to see the enormous poo statue, and behind that, of course, the sky tree. So it was a nice day. Yeah, Jeff, you've done 5 walks with 0 VO2 results. Apple's is dropping the ball big time on what everyone else does fine. I agree with you, Jeff. It's killing me. It's killing me. And, the 5% gradient rule is BS. The only thing I can think of that might have sabotaged that run is they say that you have to be 5% gradient. So it has to be like perfectly flat for more than 20 minutes with elevated heart rate and no like GPS interruptions. So don't run, whereas I did have to run under some bridges there. So there were some interruptions. Maybe that's it, but even then, that's complete BS, right? If my Withings Activité watch could do this, this freaking, laptop on my wrist should be able to handle that. Yeah, it's not cool and it's very frustrating, but hopefully they'll get that sorted out. So yeah. Next story. 2-minute papers. Again, big shout out to Quint Ranked once again for introducing this wonderful channel. I think what's great about this channel is, on the one hand, it's just fun. It's showing off what the latest For example, the generative art AI, but also all these other really cool, very usable AI sites are coming out and what they're capable of. And if they're not directly usable, things are coming out that are making them usable. And they give you an idea of just how dramatically this space is changing and how much this is going to change. This is not NFTs or crypto. There is a fad element to this. I think I saw an article the other day saying, hey, is AI now a bubble because now everybody seems to be into it? And I must admit, I am reflecting now and realizing that where Masayoshi Son and a lot of smart people have been talking about the next big thing is going to be like, AI, the race for general AI. People have been talking about this for years. It does feel to me like recently that's clicked, and maybe it's clicked because of these generative AI projects. But when you go back, particularly through this 2-minute paper series, and you look at like going back a couple of years and you start to realize the jumps in intelligence and capability of these different, AI groups there. And it's interesting. There's DeepMind, which is the Google-backed nonprofit. They're all supposedly nonprofit. That in itself is up for some debate and controversy. By being nonprofit, they don't. Then the data that they use, the data sets that they use, the data that they scrape is arguably non-commercial use, which means that they can use copyrighted material for research purposes, for non-profit purposes. And so all of these are structured as non-profits, even though their algorithms are being used definitely commercially. But there's DeepMind, which is Google. Then there's OpenAI, which was originally Elon Musk was into that. It's been sort of taken over by Microsoft. That's like Microsoft's thing. There's MindForge, I think is one, or MindJourney, Midjourney. They do the graphic stuff. There's also Stability AI, which is a genuine, NPO, but they're a much smaller group than the other ones. But there's this arms race happening, and of course there are many, many others, including ones from China and so on at the moment. But yeah, what I find mind-boggling about this is just how rapidly this technology is iterating and what it means. And it makes me realize that there are technologies like Google Search or technologies like my Alexa behind me, stuff like that, which have been built upon an enormous amount of work, but it's also based upon a certain technology and a platform, which this is kind of rendering meaningless. Like it's almost like we're going to end up starting all over again for these things, trying to iterate on a technology that's already been surpassed. It's kind of what this is doing to a lot of existing tech, let alone what it's going to be doing to stuff that isn't yet touched by automation, is going to enable automation, and not just automation, but enhanced automation. Mind-blowing and exciting and fascinating and really meaningful, I think, for anybody in any profession. It's hard to think of a profession that's not going to be touched by this. As an optimist, and I am an optimist, I think even as a lawyer, while I can see this doing a lot of the work I do every day for me, at least for a while, I'm looking forward to having this tech working for me, making me more effective at the things that I want to do. I still ultimately can make the decisions on what to do and still use this as a tool. And yes, I can see how definitely employers are going to use this as more than a tool, as something which will actually proactively replace. But there still is going to be the element of choosing what to do. And again, it's going from basically, it's the old thing of what you do with the extra time that this gives you. It opens up possibilities of doing things that you don't even consider right now because all your time is taken up doing the things that you do. So what happens when those things can be taken away? What is the extra value that you can do? What is and that is also to me very exciting about the potential of this. Total aside, I didn't put a link in here, but just this morning, actually, I finished watching the final episode of the first season. There's only one season up, but I've been going through all these Apple TV shows. Severance. I watched the final episode of Severance. That was good. I don't know what's up at the moment with the morning show is full of comedians doing great dramatic roles. It's like these are dramas, gripping dramas, but like with humorous moments, but they're fundamentally dramas. And every episode of Severance being directed by Ben Stiller, and realizing that, wow, these comedians are actually really, really good at making like dramatic TV shows. Pardon me. So, yeah. it's Severance definitely starts as a slow burn, but it built up into a great finale in the first season. Very, very enjoyable. Not what I thought it would be. I guess I won't do a spoiler. I thought this might be another hardcore AI theme, like a Black Mirror type thing, and it is very Black Mirror in many ways, but it's not what I thought it was. They explain it like pretty much the end of the first episode. You figure it out. So it's not a huge spoiler, but I won't say what it is. I would say if you get the chance to watch it, go watch it. It is interesting, and it just increases the respect I have for Ben Stiller, that he's directing something that's so well done. Theodore Sharp, great to see you, Theodore Sharp. Good, long time no see. Happy New Year. Yuri the best. Hello to you. Nice to have our man from Kiev in there. So yeah, definitely. There are so many great discoveries and so much enjoyment I've had from recommendations that people have made in the comments of this show live. This one for Quint Ranked there with this one, very enjoyable. So thank you for recommending 2-Minute Papers. Oh yeah, there's the story that I mentioned. Japanese guy came up to me at work and said, "Hey, you're from New Zealand. Do you know Gavin?" And yeah, I hate two things about this question. First, it assumes that New Zealand's so small that you can just ask someone something like that and they expect me to know the guy. And second, it often turns out I do. And in this case, I knew the guy when it took one clarifying question. So yeah, that is indeed a thing. Dan H, good to see another person who's made a great bunch of recommendations in here. The economist and NYU professor who predicted the 2008 Nouriel Roubini has a good book called Mega Threats and AI, as a whole chapter in the book. I actually have a book a friend at work recommended. You know what? I may have even cleaned it out since I read it, but there's a book called Superintelligence, which is entirely about AI, which it's kind of funny. The first half of it is fascinating. It's like an extended 2-minute papers. It's about AI technology and how it's advancing and the different versions of it and how it can, and the steps towards general intelligence, and then the steps beyond general intelligence once that's achieved, and how with the exponential speed we'll head towards the AI singularity to superintelligence. And basically talks about how, first it starts from a technological, and how amazing this is going to be. Then it talks in the second stanza about how, it's achieving a superintelligence, which is basically a general artificial intelligence that is capable of iterating the tools that make itself smarter, and from which it will become so exponentially smart, it will be like us and insects, that will have computers that will be exponentially smarter than us. And the implications that will give an enormous amount of power to whoever has control of that, including arguably the ability to stop other people getting to it. And so that will trigger a kind of, a geopolitical arms race to be the one to obtain and control the first superintelligence. And then the third part gets completely dark and dystopian about how this is what's going to basically destroy biological humanity. And that in a realistic timeline, this could all happen in less than a century. So it starts out kind of techno-optimist, and my friend at work who's reading it was in the first third and said, "Dude, you got to read this. It's great." And I read it, and I binge read it over a weekend. We came back on Monday, and he said, "Yeah, that got a bit bleak towards the end." Yeah, it is something that comes up. The big themes about general intelligence, which is basically an AI not designed for a specific single purpose, but an AI that you can train, that it can do like a person. It can do art, it can do math, it can do translation, it can do all sorts of tasks. A single AI that can generally be intelligent. Then you've got a superintelligence, which is AI that can improve its own intelligence and run off on its own without human intervention or assistance. And the idea is that ultimately that would lead to a kind of a singularity of an AI that basically could take over everything. There's some freaky stuff, but okay. 2008, Nouriel Roubini, a book, Mega Threats and AI, a whole chapter in the book. That sounds interesting. I almost don't want to read all of that stuff, but yeah. Speaking of books, have I read Homo Deus by Noah Hariri? The name Noah Hariri rings a bell. but I have not heard of. Let me write these down. These always prove to be really, really good things to do. Old-fashioned. I'm going to use a pen and paper because sometimes I turn off my PC and I lose my um, I lose my notes. So Homodurus and Nouriel Roubini megathreats. Megathreats. This sounds like something like on Discovery Channel where they have these talk shops sometimes about what's going to end the world. You know, aliens, asteroids, AI, and you know, AI gets a lot of attention. I'm an optimist about AI, but who knows? Quint Rankin. The thing about who has control of the AI, one of the arguments in the Superintelligence book is that they put up this argument that a lot of AI people are putting up now that while it's correct that we are looking at ethical use of AI and training of AI and looking at pausing and making sure that we're proceeding ethically, they're pointing out that if you think of a superintelligent AI as being like a nuclear weapon, and that this is like the race to the first sort of bomb. Countries that realize the significance of that, assuming that China would, and then it wouldn't be as ethically constrained from slowing down to make sure it was doing so ethically as the US, they argue that it's an imperative that we not get behind because we might never be able to catch up if we fall behind. Again, I think that's getting a little bit deep and theoretical, and I hope it's not like that, but that's one of the arguments that gets used. A bit like Skynet, indeed, Theodore Sharp. But yeah, Yuri the best. You like the horses analogy. All the stuff about how humans will adapt to other jobs. Where are all the horses after cars became popular? Good point. There's a few. Apparently, there's a reputed Henry Ford quote, which might not have actually been him, but it said that Henry Ford said that sometimes you shouldn't ask your customers what they want. If I'd asked my customers what they'd wanted, they would have said a faster horse. I doubt that he actually said that, but it's a good kind of a quote. And it does feed into this idea that this technology is not it's not just iterating on what it's just disrupting. And there's lots of things all of a sudden there was a lot of glue. What can we say about what happened to the horses? But more to the point, I think a better analogy for how I see AI, and I've been thinking about this far too much lately, so maybe it is a bubble that I'm thinking about this so much. It's not the intention of AI engineers to put artists out of business, although that could totally be. It could be a total outcome that lawyers will be out of the business as well. But it's like when people were inventing electricity, they weren't intending to put mill horses out of work. Mills, large factories, back before there was electricity, basically ran mechanically. They ran like mills and weaving, places that had machines before there was electricity. Basically had these huge horses whose job was just to go around in circles all day, just basically physically pushing to make machinery work inside of these factories for them to be able to do all this sort of at the very start of the Industrial Revolution. And it wasn't an intention to put the horses out of work. Having electricity, electricity had all of these benefits, and one of the side things was that they didn't need these horses anymore. They weren't aiming for the horses; it was just an inevitable thing that those particular horses that rolled just disappeared. And people went on and did other things. So of course, horse shoemakers, there aren't so many. They didn't die out. The horses didn't die out. Horse shoemakers didn't die out. There was just, it just became more of a niche thing. And I think that's, and that said, there are a ton of new jobs that, of course, emerged around using electricity, and arguably, I think no one would dispute that more jobs were created from electricity being invented than were disrupted by it. But there were disruptions from electricity, and AI is about to do that in a bigger way than I think happened with electricity. So it's interesting. Steam engines and water before electricity, but there was a thing of mill horses. And I'm trying to remember what was the specific use. I mean, maybe this has just been steam engines were themselves sort of new technology. But there was a thing. And it wasn't the direct intention of the people developing electricity to disrupt that, but it was just an inevitable outcome. Dan H., knowing you lawyers, you'll come up with some reason to stop you guys from getting out of work and paid. Hey, well, when I was in high school, we had our careers day. And I remember the guy from a commercial downtown law firm came in, I was at an all boys school. He's like, boys, just remember, when times are good, everyone's doing business, everyone's, signing deals, and they need lawyers to do the deals for them. So whenever the economy's good, it's good to be a lawyer. And whenever the economy's bad, everyone's suing each other. So it's also good to be a lawyer. So they said you're covered on the upside and the downside. So you can't go wrong. Be a lawyer, kids. That's not why I became a lawyer. In fact, I didn't become a lawyer I actually became an IT engineer out of law school. I didn't want to be a lawyer, but I came back into it. I became an IT lawyer. But that's I don't quite look at it that cynically, but sure, the lawyers do have ways of making it that they come out on top. I mean, people who are critical of the music industry, that's just a musical industry that's run by lawyers, basically. And when I have my AI artist friends saying, what should we do to make sure that the AI engineers don't, like, they won't mess with AI generation of music, but they are messing with art. They're saying, why are they treating music like they can't go there, but they're disrupting artists like this? And I was like, well, dude, I can tell you, try ripping off music. I mean, it's funny. Napster completely disrupted the music industry, and the music industry was not successful at stopping MP3s from spreading, but they sued a lot of people. So yeah, it's an interesting one. Erin, great to see you. Good morning. And thank you for joining. I feel so much better knowing that AI doesn't intend to kill the humans. No, it's just they're not. They won't feel bad about it. Like I said at the start of the show, it's more like mountain lions. You can look at mountain lions as things that are going to eat you, and you can or you can look at it as a big cute cats that just happen to eat things that include people, and there's nothing personal in it. But I think humanity through the ages has survived by assuming that the cats are doing it and the bears are eating us on purpose, and using that as a basis for caution. But but there again, they're perfectly cute, adorable big cats. So yeah. This next thing, of course, it's a pretty striking thumbnail from CNET. Whoops. I lost the page. So I was like, what the hell is this? This is like, and plus that thumbnail, the company's name is Shiftall, but geez, it does just, no matter how many times I look at it, I read the word shitfall. And I'm like, who in the hell, what's going on here? It is a Japanese company there at CNET, and what is that thing on the mouth, you might think. And apparently it is something which they put on the mouth to suppress speech. So that you don't make noise. And they had this Japanese guy says, we have this so that people who are in the metaverse can talk with their friends. They can sing and talk loudly without disrupting their family or their neighbors. And, everyone, when I shared this on Twitter, was like, who would give a shit, like, seriously, like, no. But in Japan, and even in my own family, even doing the show, I sometimes get angry text messages to keep down the racket in there. I don't think I'm going to be doing Tokyo Tonight with that thing on, but I was like, oh, yeah, he did a demonstration where he was talking loudly and then he put it on his mouth and he couldn't hear anything. I was like, oh, yeah, that would work in Japan. So there were people who would buy that, as ridiculous as that looks. I mean, it does look like a horse mouth feeding thing. I mean, I don't know, maybe that's how the AI is going to feed us. It's literally a muzzle, but it's got like stuff inside like white noise, which actually cancels your voice, so you can actually sing loudly. So yeah, big cute AI, yes indeed. You're the best. Spotify already adds some AI generated songs to various generic playlists to avoid paying royalties. I've heard about this. Although, yeah, I'm trying to remember this. There is a thing about that. Yeah, they have to be very careful about allowing in the same way that they allow AI art. If it accidentally generates music that can be traced to copyrighted source material, they're going to get their asses sued, and that's what they're being very careful with. But yeah, I've heard the same thing. Anyway, there's not a lot else going on in the news. 2 or 3 more stories. This is an interesting one. With inflation going up in Japan and wages basically not having changed in 25 years, any inflation going up, like the last quarter, prices went up in Japan like 3.8%. So correspondingly, average actual living wages in Japan have gone down by 3.8%. Kind of sucks, but yeah, my ideas of coming to Japan to make some money and go back to New Zealand or go somewhere else and live the life of luxury with my Japan savings hasn't really worked out. Not that I'm fine with how things have worked out, but Japan's basically still on the same pay scales of the mid-1990s here. Everywhere else in the world, inflation's gone up, everything's gotten more expensive, but wages have more or less matched, and they've not matched in Japan. The government's begging employers to raise wages, and they're not doing it. And so, in real terms, again, in real terms, wages are going down in Japan over a long period of time, and that's happened again in the last quarter, the largest drop basically since 2014, I think. So it's another reminder, Japan is a great place. You can have a great, comfortable life here, but it's no longer the kind of place that you'll come and work for a few years and save up money for a deposit on a house back in the home country, which is a shame. And, again, I hope that they figure out a way to correct this, but employers just don't want to touch wages at the moment. So that's the thing. But prices are going up, so something's going to have to give soon. The MyNumber card, interesting stat there. 83 million MyNumber cards have been issued. I guess the main reason which is now more than the number of issued driver's licenses in Japan. I guess that does make sense because you can give MyNumber cards to kids, and particularly when they're talking about next year having health insurance cards be replaced by MyNumber cards. Typically, different health insurance providers have different cards. So there is a proposal to have the universal citizen ID, resident ID card, MyNumber card, be like a unifying single card that you can use as a bank card, as a health insurance card, and as a general sort of ID card. And so, there is the idea that this card is kind of ugly. But I have one of them myself now. There's now 83 million issued. It makes sense that it's more than driver's licenses, but that I think makes it the most issued form of ID in Japan. Of course, in places like Tokyo, lots of people, maybe more than half of people don't have, they either don't have driver's licenses at all, or they have them, but they only have them for the ID purpose and for being able to occasionally get a rental car. And there's a lot of people who say that they're just paper drivers. Outside of Tokyo, of course, you do need a car in most of Japan, but most of the big cities, it still is remarkable to me. In New Zealand, you can drive from 15, or you could when I was growing up. So I drove to school from like 16 years old, but I haven't had a car, and I love driving. But I haven't owned a car the whole time I've been here. One thing I'm looking forward to about being in America is, trying lots of car sharing and trying out lots of cars and driving for a bit. But the old MyNumber card looks like it's becoming an essential part of life here. Here is the Japan score. So this is kind of interesting here. You can see on my Twitter, this kind of went viral. Lots of people saw this and have been sharing it. It's actually been kind of cool. I've seen like dozens of responses now. So I don't know if it's me that's responsible for it, but obviously I saw someone else doing this and I retweeted it and how to do it and did my own. But it has definitely taken off, and it is very cool. So there's this Japan level thing where it's got a map of Japan, and you mark, prefectures where you've lived, prefectures where you've stayed, prefectures where you've just visited, prefectures where you've alighted, passed there and never been there, and you get a score. And I can tell you that my score, I'll see if I can dig through to the tweet where I actually had my photo attached, but I got 104. It is I feel like you could do a more nuanced version of this, of course. For example, Fukuoka, I've stayed in Fukuoka for like multiple weeks, multiple times, and I have a homestay family there. But I still wouldn't consider that properly lived. I never registered as a Japanese resident in Fukuoka, so I would still only count that as stayed. So in terms of lived, for me, it's only Chiba Prefecture, Kashiwa, and Tokyo. In terms of stayed, I mean, that's actually quite, I'd consider that staying overnight. Visited being somewhere where I didn't stay overnight, but I did properly get out, whereas alighted is just getting out of the train, and passed is going by on the bullet train. So I haven't been to Shikoku at all, and I've kind of missed out Tottori and Shimane, and some of the East Coast places. But I had pretty good coverage, and I got a score of 104. Some people in there, as you'd expect, some people in my chain who have like, let me see if I can dig this up. I can't get my original tweet with my actual graphic. Maybe I can. It's not letting me. I wish I could show my own image. That's what drives me crazy about Flipboard. But it's still pretty cool. You should try it out yourselves anyway. It's zhung.taiwan.tw, Japan EX. This is not me. This is a sample, but this is kind of, an example of what it looks like filled in, and it's pretty cool, and everyone's sharing this at the moment. If you've done it, yeah, definitely share your score. So Kerberos Tenchi is a 39. Theodore Sharp, I know a lawyer in Texas. He's talking about quitting his job to teach English in order to live in Japan on a work visa. I told him that's a bad idea. Theodore Sharp, interesting. I disagree. I think coming to Japan to teach without any other qualification, like studying law, to come to Japan, there is a risk that you'll teaching in Japan is fine. And some people actually turn it into their whole life, like their career, and they set up an English school and they're happy doing that, and that's good. But I do think the best way to come to Japan, and if your plan is only to come here for a year, just to do it as a gap year, that is also okay. But generally, if you want to come here and live in Japan, I would suggest, if you are studying engineering or law or teaching or something like that, get your other certification first, because what the ideal case is that if you have another kind of certification or another kind of profession, when you come to Japan, if you like living here and you become fluent in Japanese, then the doors will open that you can do the other profession that you like doing. There are ways that he might become a lawyer in Japan, for example, or there are ways that you might become an IT engineer, or I don't know, some other sort of job. Whereas if you come here and you haven't completed your other certifications, your professional training before you come to Japan, you've got nothing to fall back on. So, like, if you want to live in Japan, you have to teach English, and you don't have any choice, which is good if you want to do that, and if that's something that you want to make your whole life. But you don't want to you want to have maximum options, particularly if you have a professional interest that are beyond just teaching English. If your professional life goal is to teach English, then that's great. Just come straight here. So what your friend is doing, if he's already a qualified lawyer and he wants to come to Japan to teach English, that's actually a good way to do it, I think. Being here will give him the chance to look around and see what his options are, and he might find a way to live here as a lawyer. But what I would discourage is anyone who's in the middle of studying, and this sometimes happens, that people are studying something else, but they're in such a rush to get to Japan, they decide to skip their degree or skip their certification or their apprenticeship, and they come to Japan, and then they get kind of stuck. That's my personal advice on that. Kerberos Tenchi, when is the US? If you rent a Ford Mustang, try to avoid big crowds. Mustangs have a tendency to crash into crowds. I don't understand what you're talking about. I assume you mean a Ford Mustang, and I've rented a Ford Mustang, and I love Ford Mustangs, and I'm probably definitely going to rent one when I get to America, but what could I do? Geez, there are some dark things there. 23rd is usually a really busy day, but it is usually from Zealand to Jutland direction. Oh, you're in Denmark, are you? I think it's Denmark, isn't it? Jutland. Anyway, one more story. There's apparently, I keep seeing stories like this about trends and basically landlord abuse. Apparently, minimalist youth in Japan winning over paying, getting to live in small apartments that have when it says no bath, that clarifies in the article, no bathroom. So these are people who will go and use an external center, a bathhouse, whatever, for bathing, and they won't actually have one inside their apartment. This is exactly the sort of thing that when I was in my early 20s, I'd think, yeah, I could do that. That'd be cool. I could live in the middle of Shibuya. I could afford to pay rent. It'd be a super convenient location. And I could give up having a shower. I could just go across the road or find a center nearby and do that. And that'll be fine. And that is fun for about a month. And then you'll realize one day that you would want to, that sometimes you just want to, have a shower in the middle of the night. Maybe somebody will come into your apartment, need somewhere to throw up. Maybe you'll have, there are reasons in one's life when you live like a full year, you might have some kind of horrible contagious disease that you'll just need to go and use the shower, and it won't really be appropriate, for you to go 3 o'clock in the morning to the center across the road. You're going to have nowhere to go. You don't think about having those problems. I heard somewhere the other day that, people's brains are not fully formed until they're 26. I think for me, it was like 29. But yeah, anytime before I was 29, that would have seemed like a good idea. I would definitely not recommend that now. And frankly, this just strikes me that those should not be permitted to be sold as apartments if they don't have bathrooms in them. But not only are landlords trying to get away with doing it, but they're turning it into like a popular, cool trend in Nikkei, which I think is just landlord abuse. But anyway, that's the final story. That's my advice. Go for a mid-size SUV. I'll go for all the things, frankly. It's one of my little mini goals there is to go for a drive every weekend and to try to rent lots of different sort of cars. I'll definitely try an American mid-size SUV is basically like an army truck. But yeah, I will do that. Do the apartments have toilets? Asked Quint Rankin. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they have toilets. I'm pretty sure you're not allowed to sell apartments without toilets. But I would argue that a unit bath should also be required. But, at least it's a shower. But, there you go. Theodore Sharp, I was in a black company when you were a teacher. That's why I discouraged him from doing it. Oh, yeah, that you want to be careful of. Nothing wrong with, there are good teaching gigs in English. It's not as a profession, something to avoid, but you want to do your due diligence on that. And certainly it used to be a profession that you could come in, make money. Give me a break, man. Still complains. It's the New Zealanders and Australians flooding into Japan in the late 1990s that destroyed the English teaching profession, where we just worked for nothing. When America used to be quite a high-paying profession, there were too many of us that came and we all agreed to work for low wages, and we destroyed the profession, which we probably did, yeah, because we were living in apartments with no bathrooms or toilets, pretty much, and we thought that was a good idea. We're pretty stupid. Sorry about that. Sorry that New Zealand and Australia destroyed English teaching in Japan, but what can you do? It did used to be that if you're willing to live in like the Inaka in a country town, you could get pretty good gigs, actually. I was offered at my part-time job in New Zealand, a lady who ran an English school in the middle of nowhere. I can't even remember where it was. It was like in Gifu or something. She was like, if you come, I'll give you 400,000 yen a month and all living expenses. We'll put you in a dorm and everything. And you can just come and teach 4 days a week at my English school. It sounded like, and everyone was like, dude, that is like great. That's a great deal. And it sounded like a good deal. And I was tempted, but I was still studying. And I was like, no, I'm going to finish studying. But it was good to know that option was there. I haven't heard of deals like that since I came to Japan. But yeah, apparently it used to exist. As usual, I'm over time. Wow, Mathology. Good to see a new name there in the chat. Welcome. Don't forget HEPA filter for the forest fires near Seattle, Vancouver. Damn, you got to worry about that. Okay, thank you for the warning. Renegade is a good Jeep to drive. Everybody, smash the like button. Yes, like and subscribe. Do that good thing. 13 likes, 19 watches. Do appreciate it. Sainted Sir, good to see you. Thank you for joining. Black Tengu as well. Good to have you there in the chat. Good to have everyone in the chat. Nice to see all the discussion tonight. Not a lot of topics. Eric Bailey, now I can start. Good to see everyone. Look, in terms of my schedule for the US, nothing's going to be confirmed until the visa stuff. I'm going to fly as soon as I get the visa, but nothing's going to be confirmed until I get the visa. The fastest I'll be in America will be like in the second week of February at this rate. I will share information on when I'm doing that. Erin, if you're going to be traveling out, would be great to say hello, and to anyone else. California or Washington. I will figure out a trip to California at some point, but it'd be great when I'm over there to say hello to people. If you're in Japan, of course, if you're in Tokyo, January 21st, Saturday, 1 p.m., Hobgoblin in Roppongi, 3 hours. Looks like it'll be a low-key meetup, which is how I like it. It means I can talk to everybody. So hoping I can say hello to some people then. Otherwise, stay cool. Follow me on Twitter or on Mastodon or on all the things at Siko Simon. It's the same. Hang out with me. I've got nothing else to do. I'll be back here next Sunday night, 10:30 p.m. Japan Standard Time. And looking forward to seeing you all again soon. Have a good week. Stay safe. Don't get the Rona. Don't get the flu. And see you next week. Boom. Peace. See you, Jeff. Finishing now.